Hi, I'm Caroline Rider of Rider Horsmanship. This month's episode of Holistic Horse Ask the Expert is about going bitless. Bitless riding, feeling like you're in control and having safety. What does that look like? And what are the key areas to develop so that you have the confidence in yourself and your ability to control your horse, as well as you have the level of partnership and the horse's control and through the body. So before we begin going through some riding exercises, I'm going to talk about the various bitless bridles, so to speak. And right now we just have a rope halter on Lovey, my thoroughbred, and a lead line. And we do our lunging, we do our groundwork with this apparatus, this piece of equipment. And then when we're ready to ride, go ahead, love. We tie the lead line. And I'll show you how we do that. So right now, if the camera can just zoom in a little bit, I'm going to show on this side, I'm going to pull Lovey around. Come here, girl. So that the camera can see how I'm going to measure my rein length and then how I'm going to tie it. So right now, I want to pull up my rein like this. You can see how I have the one side closest to me, a little bit of tension. It's a little taut. And I'm holding the other part of the lead rope with my left hand. The right hand is pulling it up to the hand position that I'm going to be riding in. So I want to make sure that I don't have too long of a rope, and I will also want to make sure that I don't have too short of a rope. So visualize when you're sitting, where is your hand usually when you are riding, whether it's trail riding or if you're doing some exercises in arena work. So this is usually the appropriate spot, especially for your hands, for balance when you ride, and I'll show you that when I get on. And this is a great length because there's just a little bit of casual contact here. It's not too loose and it's not too tight. So now I'm going to take the other side of the lead rope with my left hand here and add the same tightness, the same contact, resistance, and I'm going to match it to the bottom of this halter. And this halter happens to come with a nice large loop here. The camera can zoom in where the lead rope connects underneath the chin. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make a U. I'm going to push this lead rope together so that I make this U shape. And then I'm going to take the point of the U through the loop at the bottom of the halter. And so now you see that I have a little hole that I've created. Now I'm going to take the end of the lead rope. So I'm going to hold the U. I'm going to take the end, I'm going to create another U and slide it through. But this time I'm going to pull the end of the lead rope all the way through. And then I'm going to have like a little bit of a pretzel, you can see, and then I'm going to pull it tight with both hands. Pull it really tight. It should not loosen. Sometimes they do, but it should not. Now, if you have a long enough lead rope or a short enough horse, you can fasten the lead rope to your bareback pad or your saddle, but this isn't long enough. So what we do is we just loop it around the pole, and I'm going to take these poppers and I'm just going to tie it. I'm going to refasten it over here. Now the reason why I do this rather than tie it down, you'll see a lot of natural horsemanship with their lead ropes, and I used to do this myself and it always bothered me because the lead rope is tied in many loops underneath the horse, and sometimes it's this long. And when your horse is moving, it pops them in the face. Now sure, my horses have gotten used to that, but I work with so many new horses all the time that really bothers them, and I wouldn't like it either. So we just fasten it like this. It's not going to affect you at all when you are using applying contact to your horse. And like I said, if you have a smaller horse like my little Arab Legend, and you'll have a lot more of this Makati, this loose lead rope, to tie loosely. You don't want to tie it tight. You always want to make sure it can come easily undone and you have plenty of length. Because if your horse trips and that's too tight, it's going to pull your saddle or your bareback pad forward. All right, so that is the lead rope in the rope halter. That's a piece of equipment for bitless, and we start all of our horses. We restart them and start all of our horses in this equipment. I do not use bits anymore, and that's a whole nother topic. For refinement, and rope halters vary. You know, you can have one that has a little extra piece of material. I personally, this is new for us. I don't really like this. It's hard, it's stiff, it has these ridges. Maybe that's for more control. And that's fine if you have a horse that's going to push through contact, that's fine. But Lovey's really sensitive. And this just happens to be a hand-me-down halter from Sundance. So, you know, the rest of my halters are just this 2 layers, 2 pieces of this thin rope right across the nose. I don't like the knots, and I really don't like this. And I don't like a stiff piece of halter either. I want it really light and soft and flexible. But like I said, if you have a horse that really has a tendency to push through contact, especially drafts, it just seems to be their nature, then you're going to want a piece of material perhaps this thick, or you're going to want to go to some of the other pieces of equipment I'm going to start talking about in a minute. All right, so the rope halter is primarily our means of equipment and how I train, and I will show you that I can get the same amount of contact and flexion in this piece, because we're going to stay with this. I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to show you how I can get contact. I can get her to really soften in my hands. I can get all the lateral and vertical flexion that I want. I can get a beautiful backup with this. I ride in this, we trail ride in these. So for me, this is my choice, and I'll show you some exercises when I get on that'll help you feel like you have more control and safety. So right now we're going to move over to the other bridles over here. They're all bitless, and each one is a little bit different, and their purpose is different. Their purpose is the same, but it's a little bit different, meaning it depends on your horse. Like I said, Lovey doesn't really need this thick apparatus that has these little points of pressure. She's very sensitive. But I have my 18-hand draft, Zor, and this is a Bosel. And the rope halter, while he responds well in a rope halter, he is by nature bred to be heavy. You know, draft horses pull. And he does come into contact very nicely. There's no doubt about that. But this piece of equipment, the size, the width of the noseband works great for him. I just feel like he responds to this so much better, and I have more control. Definitely more control. So this is a Bosel, and it has a long lead rope, the Makati, and then you can see that it also has the reins, and it's bitless. So this is one piece of equipment. It comes all in one piece. You can buy these nose pieces separately, and so if you have a bridle that you love, your head stall, you can undo the bit and substitute it with one of these, and or you can substitute it with a stop and turn, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So this is one style of a Bosel. Here's another. There's many different styles. Here's another. This one has as you can see, a nylon nose piece. It doesn't have this leather. And I like the thickness of this leather. I've gone thinner, and it will burn your horse's nose. You have to be really careful. Like I said, if you've got a really heavy horse or a horse that really pushes through contact, be careful with what you use around their face. Just be careful. And I always recommend starting out in a rope halter. So this is another one, just a different apparatus. It works very well. The horses that use this, they're very light and very sensitive. So think about points of pressure. See how thick this point of pressure is? It's like 2 fingers in width. So when applied, when this is on the nose, the pressure is expanded. It's not as direct, meaning when you have, my sweetie, when you have a smaller piece of material across the nose, the pressure when applied is more intense. So it's just like taking 1 finger and pushing into your palm versus taking 2 fingers and pushing in. You're going to feel the 1 finger a lot more than you're going to feel both fingers. So for horses that are easy and they're schoolmasters, the bigger material works great. For horses that they're learning, I'm going to go with a smaller, thinner piece over the nose. So we're going to progress and graduate to these pieces. So those are the 2 different styles of Bosels that I have. And here's a stop and turn. So this piece is, again, your complete bridle. You've got your head stall here. You've got your ear piece. It's not a brow band. It fits over 1 ear. I started out with this working cattle, teaching my 2 quarter horses, and that's a blast. And so the point of it is you don't want to be in their mouth. And so if you have, again, a bridle, you can always take the bit out, which I've done to all of my dressage bridles. I've taken the bits out and I've replaced them with stop and turns. And so the stop and turn, come here, sweetheart, you can buy usually for about $20 or $25 online. And unfortunately, they come in one size. So I can't use this on my big headed 18-hand Frisian sport horse. And it barely fits Smokey because he has a bit of a Roman nose. So you have to be really careful. Now let's talk about the stop and turn. This is a really hard piece of lariat lasso material, if the camera can pan in a little. And you have to have light hands because this can be a very severe piece of equipment, like a bit, if it's not used correctly. So this will go over the nose. I'll just show you how it fits, like so. And we'll put, this may not fit her. She hasn't worn this one. And this will go over the ear. So I'll have to adjust it, poor girl. She really looks bothered by this. She's just happy to have the time, the bonding. She is such a love. All right. So, and I'll show you how it fits over the ear. When you buy the stop and turn, sometimes it's a bit confusing how to put it on. I've had plenty of my clients purchase these. So right now, if the camera can pan in, you'll see that you have the metal chin piece down here and the lariat over the nose. And so the cool thing about what I like about the stop and turn is you have lateral, just like you would if you had a bit, you've got the lateral control versus a Boselle, or when you make like a hackamore like I have with the rope halter here, you have this more vertical. All the points of contact come underneath the chin versus the sides. So a lot of my clients feel safer in something like this, where you have more of a shank and the lateral control. And so you have to figure out with your horse what piece of equipment is going to work best. Where are they in their training? Because like I said, if I'm going to have a horse that's being rehabilitated here and is a runaway, I always start him out in here. I mean, that's my skill level because I'm a trainer. I do this for a living. I always start him out in a hackamore or this rope halter and lead rope. However, we are going to graduate, and I will recommend to the client, because they don't have my skill level, the timing, the awareness, the skill, to graduate to the hackamore. But you have to have light hands, because watch when I put a lot of pressure on this. When I take, now she's going to respond to it, but you can see how the chin piece comes right up there. And this is a lariat, so you don't want to be yanking around on their face. They've got hundreds of nerves in their nose, hundreds. So I use this piece of equipment as refinement. I don't use it to teach. I don't. I teach always with this hackamore, this rope halter, and then I use this for refinement. So you can see, I'll turn around and show you the earpiece. Come here, love. She's half asleep. They're out all night and they come in during the day, and it's morning. So you can see how this just fits over the ear. And this is just a typical Western reining. This is predominant with working cattle. It just seems to be the style. And that's how I got turned on with the stop and turn, working cattle. So I'm going to take this off, because we're not going to be using it. And we're going to now move on to some of the exercises. There's 5 of them. There's 5 exercises that it's very hot in Florida, even at 9 o'clock in the morning in September, that I want to make sure my horse understands, and that I understand as a rider what I'm looking for, the level, the quality. It's one thing to have a horse back up with resistance, and it's another thing to have a horse back up with acceptance and responsiveness. So I'm going to be talking about 5 key areas when I get on Lovey, the first one being mounting. And again, this is riding bitless, in control, and safely. So I want you to make sure that before you get on your horse, not to mention I'm bareback, and that's a whole nother episode, when you get on your horse, that your horse is calm and that your horse is tuned into you. So the mounting is got to be the first thing that you look for. How easy is it to get on this horse now? Are they tuned into you? Because if they're nervous and fractious and fidgety, and you're not used to using this piece of equipment, and they are not used to responding to it, you could be headed for danger, a dangerous situation. And again, when I go bitless, I prefer these pieces of equipment. I do not go in a leather or nylon halter and a normal or standard nylon lead rope. These pieces of equipment, the rope halters and lead ropes, were designed for training. So their purpose is to help you be light, help the horse respond to lightness, not push into a heavy piece of equipment. I did not bring up Cook's, Dr. Cook's bitless. Lots of my clients use that, and like I said, some of those horses respond really well to Cook's bitless, which I recommend as well, and some of the horses don't. It has a different means of pressure, and when you apply the contact to the reins, the pressure comes, crosses over like this underneath of the chin. And yet my problem that I have sometimes in the horses is that pressure doesn't always release when you release. It still stays there, and so that means that they still feel that pressure around their poll, and it can really make some horses anxious, all that contact and constant pressure. So that's just something to think about. It's wonderful. I highly recommend all bitless, including Dr. Cook's. It's just sometimes it doesn't work, like some of these don't work for every horse either. Okay, so I'm going to take Lovey up to the mounting block and talk about mounting and what it should look like. The level of relaxation in your horse, the level of focus, the level of connection, as well as the level of obedience. That's why we do groundwork and a lot of riding. I want this horse really connected to me. She's an ex-racehorse, so it's taken a while to get her to calm down and relax. All right, I'm going to get on. A little clumsy, but not so bad. And for me, I want to be able to adjust myself, tuck my shirt in, fool with my phone. I don't want to have to handle my horse right now. All of my horses and the horses that come into training, I want them to stand here quietly until I tell them something to do, till I give them a request. So right now I'm going to gather the reins, and if the camera wants to pan out, so mounting is very important. Having a quiet horse is very important. Helps you feel confident, helps you feel like you've got the connection that you need with your horse. So right now what I'm going to do is show you the vertical, the little bit of vertical flexion, which is really important. So the second step, and there's 5 that I'm going to be talking about to helping you feel like you have control and helping you feel safe. The second one is flexion. So we've mounted. Now I want to work on the vertical. I want to see how well she listens to contact without pulling. How well does she listen to contact? Is she asleep right now? Possibly. So I might do a little seesaw. There we go. A little bit of back and forth to get her to come back into my hand. So that will be our vertical. And now I'm going to release. Now I'm going to ask again. This is really important because you have to have a horse that accepts this type of contact, especially for your backup and all the other areas we're going to be talking about. So our vertical is pretty nice. Now I'm going to show you our lateral. So I'm going to slide my hand down, pull it out to my thigh. She's very relaxed. I'm going to release that side, take the right rein, slide my hand down, and pull out to my thigh. Feet are not moving. If your horse's feet are moving, then their mind is busy. Busy mind always shows up in a busy feet, busy mouth or busy feet. So she's very tuned in. Relax that rein, take the left rein, slide your hand down, pull out, not back, pull out to your thigh, and hold. So this is part of the flexion that has to be taught, because we're going to show how effective this is in an emergency. Now let me tell you something. I've had bolting horses, I've had runaway horses, and it doesn't matter with bits. I've had shanks, I've had everything. It doesn't matter. If that horse's mind is blown, you are not going to be able to bend them to a stop. The key thing to think about for safety and confidence in a situation like that is don't let it happen. you can't do anything about it once it's there, especially the 18-hand draft that bolted and blew with me a few months ago. And I fell hard. You can't stop that. Maybe a smaller horse, you can twist them around, and maybe men can. But most of us women, we can't. Once that horse's mind is gone, that flight is in there, there's no way. So my job is to teach you how to become more aware of your horse, their thoughts before they commit to the action. It's really key. Do they starting to get excited? Does the body start to tense up? Is their head getting higher? Are they becoming more focused on your surroundings and not you? Those are signs that your horse is no longer feeling comfortable or relaxed or safe, and they're not tuned into you. So this flexion is so important. I don't care if you're bitless or with a bit, you've got to have it. And we're going to show how it works when you're riding. So I'm very happy with the lightness of this, and she's very relaxed, as you can tell. So now we're going to take those two ingredients of contact into our backup. So I'm looking, how light is my horse? And how responsive is she? How light in my hands and how responsive? So remember, I'm not pulling her to back up. I'm asking her to come into the contact, relax her back and her neck, relax her top line so that her backup is fluid and smooth. And then I'm going to just adjust my position a little bit, sit back a little, lift my hands up a little, and that is the cue for the backup. And I might add a little cluck to get a little bit more energy. Contact is so key because it helps us understand where we are with our go buttons, our whoa buttons, our turning, our stopping. How easy it is for you to turn your horse. How many of us really have that kind of body control? How many of us can control the nose? Even on a trail ride, you've got to be able to steer that horse. And when you steer the horse, does the body follow? So these levels of contact here, the quality of the contact is so important. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to talk about, we've talked about mounting, we've talked about the flexion. The third is the backup, the quality of the backup. Is it soft? Is she responsive to my contact? Yes, right now she is. But we're pretty quiet and we're pretty relaxed. So the last two we're going to talk about hind quarter control. Can you spin your horse's hindquarters around? Bend them and spin their hindquarters around. That is extremely important to feeling safe. And again, whether you have a bit or you're bitless, you've got to be able to control that horse's body. And the most important aspect of all of this is you staying tuned in enough to catch the signs before something dangerous happens, before your horse explodes. I'm going to ask Lovey to walk off. All right, so I've asked Lovey to walk off, and I'm right now working on some light contact with my inside rein. So we've already worked on our vertical flexion and our lateral flexion. So again, I'm going to do a review of the 5 key areas to helping you as a rider feel confident in control of your horse so that you are safe. First one is, how good is your mounting? How quiet is your horse? How relaxed and how tuned in? The second would be the flexion, vertical and lateral, because it's all about contact and how well your horse listens, how accepting they are of contact and how obedient they are. Now that's really where the safety is. How well does your horse listen when you stop with your seat, add a little bit of contact with your hands, with your reins? We've got the backup. How good is your backup? Do you have to fight and pull your horse? Especially if you have a bit, oh my gosh, and a gaping mouth. So how well is your backup? So I'm going to stop right there again and ask her to back up, shorten my reins. Because what I'm creating when I shorten my reins and not pull is I'm creating a box of contact from my hands to her nose. And she has learned that it's her job to release herself from that contact. She can release it by moving away from that contact. That's the cue. And I get lighter and lighter in my contact the more and more she gives. So there's her release. And so I keep her engaged. I have my horse engaged. Her mind is thinking about me. And the last one that we're going to talk about, again, is going to be hind end. The hind quarter yield. So right now I'm going to go ahead and slide my right hand down and pull her to a one rein stop to my thigh. Pull out into my thigh. So she was a little stuck there. Good girl. So we're going to go on and do some more of those at the walk. We're certainly not going to take it into the trot, let alone a canter, which you would not abruptly pull your horse's nose around. You'd bend the nose out and into a smaller circle and wind them down at a faster speed because you don't want to be wiping out. So there's our bend to a halt at the walk to the left. So for Lovey, it's hard for her to just come to a complete stop. For my older horses that are very well trained, my schoolmasters, they relax immediately and come to a stop. But you know, Lovey's young, she's off the track. She's got an amazing work ethic, lots to try. So she's ready to go, go, go. So I'm going to ask her to stop again. Slide my left hand down, pull out, not back, out, out into my thigh and hold on my thigh, my knuckles on my thigh. Good girl. We're going to go to the right. So the whole time I'm riding, I'm working with light contact. I'm using my fingers to apply light pressure to get her to relax her top line, drop her head, open her back up. And I'm keeping her mind engaged through my aids. So as I make my right hand turn, I'm going to again slide my right hand down, pull out into my thigh, and keep my knuckles on my thigh. So we'll wait till she turns around again and just keep your knuckles right here. Keep your balance point. Sit yourself back on your bum a little bit. Hold in your belly and put your hand here. Good girl. So I'd like to see that get a lot better before I'm going to take it into the trot. But what I want to start introducing is the hind quarter yields. And they begin by being able to bend your horse like this. This is how you start. As you finesse this technique in this exercise, you won't have to bend your horse all the time. But right now for bending, I want you to watch my right leg and my right hand. So watch my right leg. I'm going to move it back there and I'm going to bend her. And see how I just pushed her hindquarters around? But she needed that bend, didn't she? So if I felt that she was really up, you know, her head was high, her back was tight, and something's got her attention and she's ready to blow, and I don't want to ride that, I can't handle it, I'm going to bend her, kick her hindquarters around. Come on. If that doesn't get her attention and get her soft and relaxed underneath of me, I'm going to keep doing it till she softens. Then I'm going to jump off. Emergency dismount. Opposite side. Whether I hang on to my horse or not, it doesn't matter. But get off. And that's the whole purpose of the one rein stop or the bend and the kicking the hindquarters around. So I always advise to my clients, my students, if you're going to ride, period, you've got to be limber. You've got to practice dismounting. I went over a couple of months ago with a couple of my students how to fall. And I learned as a young kid how to fall, how to drop and roll, and it saved me because I wasn't wearing a helmet 3 months ago when I fell at top speed from my 18 hand bolting Frisian sport horse. I wasn't wearing a helmet, but I dropped and rolled on my shoulder and curled. I bruised my ribs. I did not fracture them or they'd still be hurting, but I did bruise them, and it was very painful for the first month, and it scared me. I'm getting older. It scared me. You know, that was a good wake-up call for me. And we had been doing really well. I trail ride him. I canter him out there in a rope halter. He is a bit buddy sour. He has been a really shut down horse. Very not that he would blow, but he had a tendency to freeze. And I do believe, you know, with all my experience, he just woke up. He was being able to, in the waking up, he was more sensitive to his surroundings. And it was in a situation where I was riding out here in this small pasture, and I had Lovey and a bunch of my other horses out here, and they took off running, and he couldn't handle it. And so we need to know. I need to make sure. That's one of the things we do here, that when you have horses that you're preparing for trail riding, that if that horse, other horses are running, that your horse is not going to run with them. And I did not practice that with Zor, my Frisian, my draft. But I have done that with most of my other horses. But I haven't done that with Lovey yet. But Lovey's really calm. You know, you can tell, even though she's off the track, she's got a great mind, absolutely great mind. And Zor, I really felt, and he's in a couple of my spooky horse free training videos, he had come a long way. He's come a long way. And that incident really gave me a reality check. You know, don't take anything for granted, and I should have tested him like I have done in the past, meaning, can we ride out here with other horses moving, you know, running? And I've always done that. When I'm preparing a horse for trail riding, I will, before we go out on the trail, I will put them in a big field with the big herd, and I will have one of my students ask the big herd to go, to run, and just run them. And can my horse stand there quietly and not be affected by that? So again, to me, I'm trying to give you so many areas to think about that really don't have anything to do with bitless or bits. It has to do with your relationship and the mindset of your horse. We do so much preparation so that by the time, you know, we are communicating with this type of equipment and these aids, the horse is super tuned in, super comfortable, super respectful and obedient and cooperative. And that's what's going to help you. All these things are going to help you. I can't say that a bit is going to stop a horse any more than bitless will stop a horse. It's the work that you do to prepare that horse. And so I'm giving you some basics right now. I'm going to bend her and kick her hindquarters out and around. Good girl, love. One more time so we face the camera. Good girl. Thank you, sweetie. So some of your horses may not respond. Lovey didn't know how to respond to this. She thought it meant go. She would get really hot. It was crazy. So I used a long dressage whip, and I would ride like this, and I would put my pressure on, and then I'd give her 2 little taps. And as soon as she just gave me 1 step away from the pressure, which would mean this is my right leg pushing her left, as soon as she gave me 1 little step, I'd release and rub. It took weeks of that work on both sides for her to become comfortable that anytime I put leg on her, like I am now, it doesn't mean go. Good girl. Yeah, so good girl. And then how can I get her to not shut down and push against that leg? How can I get her to learn to respond and yield to that leg? So I always use dressage whips to tap, just as a supporting aid to tap. It doesn't take the place of my leg, it just helps to tune the horse in. So if I'm pressure, 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 and she's not listening, then the whip would be right here. Good, until she did, and release and reward. Good girl. So we're going to take this walk up into a trot transition, and I'm only going to ask the trot for about 3 strides. I don't want it to get out of control. Not that it will with her, but I don't know where you are in your horsemanship. So I'm going to ask Lovey again. I've got some nice vertical contact. I'm going to ask her to pick up the trot. Good girl. And then I'm going to bend her to a stop. Good. And I'm not going to let go until she gives, till she makes that release in the rope. Good girl. So we'll do it this way. I'm going to ask for the trot again. Good girl. Now wait till we get past the camera. And I'm going to slide my hand down and bend. And I'll wait until she creates the slack, the release. Good girl. So I want you to get used to doing that. And if the trot is too scary or too much for you right now, work on your walks and your transitions in your walk. So right now we have kind of a pokey slow walk. I'm going to ask for a medium walk. And then I'm going to ask for a working walk. And that's going to feel like she's thinking about a trot. It's going to be a much bigger stride, and she's going to be thinking about that trot. But I'm going to have enough contact so that if she does pick up into the trot, I can stop her or I can bend her. Again, we're looking for the quality, the level of responsiveness, and the level of relaxation. Response and relaxation. So you can equate relaxation with softness and being light. And Love's a little bit stuck this morning. I took her away from the rest of her breakfast, and like I said, they're out all night. So this is good for her. She's doing a great job. So thank you very much. I hope these tips help you feel like you're going to have more control and feel safe when you're riding bitless. In my experience with working with over 1,000 horses, it has nothing to do with the bit or bitless. It has to do with your horse's mindset and the level of training. I want to make sure that my horse, more than anything, is listening to my seat, not my hands. And so if any of you follow me in my free training or my DVDs, I follow classical dressage principles in the training pyramid, the scale, and the seat is everything. So when I have to use my hands, it's just as a secondary aid and or to help rebalance the horse so that the horse can maintain their own carriage. They don't rely on me. And so the stop is through my seat. If she doesn't listen to that, then my supporting aid are my hands. And if your horse blows through light contact, then get stronger. Get stronger and shut it down. But sit back. Don't let yourself get thrown forward with this. Sit back. Use your belly, your core muscles, as your point of balance, like a tree with the trunks in the ground. You want to stay really firm right here. So sit back and hold. And work on your horse becoming really responsive and very relaxed with all of those areas, those techniques I just showed you. I look forward to your comments. Please feel free to ask me any questions. May you always be one with your horse. Thank you.